UAE have authorized COVID vaccinations for kids 5 and up. From Abu Dhabi tonight, we have Dr. Rajib Ali. Good evening to you, Doctor.
Good evening.
And from Israel, we are here with Professor Nadav Davidovich. Good evening to you, Nadav.
Hello, good evening.
Dr. Ali, let me start with you. You were very quick to follow the FDA on this. Tell us about the decision.
So actually in the UAE, we have had a number of vaccines in use, and the Sinopharm vaccine has been authorized for children here from the age of 3 for a few months now, and for teenagers for quite a long time. And also the booster doses have been since June. So the UAE has been very proactive actually in getting the vaccination rates as high as possible, not just amongst adults, but also amongst teenagers and children. So it's no surprise that they've now authorized Pfizer for use, the Pfizer vaccine for use in 5 adults as well.
No big deal. FDA authorized, and that's it. You don't need anything else.
No, I mean, in general, we follow if the FDA or EMA or MHRA approve, that's usually taken as sufficient evidence that it's established both safety and effectiveness.
Right. Well, tell that to Professor Davidovich, because Israel is very hesitant, and they have committees and discussions and arguments about this here. Why so, Professor Davidovich?
I don't think we are hesitant. We are following, the usual path. This Thursday, there's going to be the first meeting. It should be open to the public for the first time. I'm very happy. We pressed to do it already for many months. I think it's a good move. And what we are actually doing is discussing the current situation in Israel, the data. We count, first of all, on our experts. Israel has been known for a long time as an expert in vaccination policies. We are in touch, of course, with the FDA. And I just want to remind us that regarding the boosters, Israel was actually approving it first. So we are following the procedures, doing all the necessary.
We'll talk about the booster in a second, but the FDA is not enough for you? Would you say?
No, it's not a question of enough or not enough. We are, autonomous country, especially we need to adapt the different recommendation according to our epidemiology. And of course, the FDA is a very important body. We are in touch, especially with Professor Arnold Monto, the chair of the committee. And we want to have a proper decision-making so everybody here in Israel would be secure enough to understand that we're doing all the discussion as needed.
Right. So I want to ask you, Dr. Ali, do you have people who are actively opposing vaccinations at the UAE?
It's not common here. I mean, to be honest, with the vaccine passport that's used here, you need to have something called a green pass, similar to Israel, and you can't even get into a supermarket without the green pass. And so although vaccination is not compulsory, in practice, it's very difficult to live a normal life here, to go to work, to go to school, to go shopping without vaccination. The only alternative really is very frequent testing. And of course, many people here are expatriates as well and travel frequently to their countries of origin. And so again, for travel, it's much easier if you are fully vaccinated. So I think the vaccine uptake, there's a reason why the UAE has the highest vaccine uptake in the world. It's partly because we don't have this level of vaccine hesitancy, but also because it makes life much easier. So now I think over 80% of the population has had all doses, and in children, as I said, it's come in for a few months now, for 3+. So it's increasing in children as well.
Right. So, Professor Davidovich, on one hand, Israel was the first to go with the third booster, even before FDA approval. On the other hand, there are quite a few people who oppose the whole thing here in Israel. And, even we have health officials, being targeted by some violent people. How do you explain that?
Okay, so first of all, I totally against, of course, any such violent measures. It can be not necessarily physical, but all of this phenomenon, this is something to be condemned. But I want to put things in proportion. Israeli people, actually, most of them are for vaccination. It's embedded in our culture, even before the establishment of Israel as a state. And even for children, according to different surveys, between 1/2 to 2/3 of parents already want to vaccinate. About 20% are hesitant. Around me, many parents want to vaccinate. They are, tired of all the testing and all of the situation, especially in schools. By the way, most of positive cases now are among children that are not vaccinated. And I think with the right approach, including open, transparent discussion, and we need also to remember, following the first question, that the vaccines are going to be here only by the end of the second half of November. So we have the time to approve them, to make all the explanations needed, and I'm sure that there'll be a good uptake. And this will be important both for the personal protection and also for community protection.
Right. Dr. Ali, what about the third booster? How do you deal with this?
So that started here in June, and again, it became a condition to be considered fully vaccinated to have the third dose within 6 months of this, or after 6 months of the second dose. So you couldn't get that green pass without the third dose. Again, uptake has been extremely high here. And the good news is that in the UAE, as well as I've seen obviously in Israel, but also in Bahrain, the 3 countries I think which are most advanced with these booster doses, we really have seen hospitalizations, deaths, and cases fall and stay low for some months now. So that I think is a very good indication of just how effective these booster doses have been.
Did you have a chance at the UAE to get some data from Israel as being one of the first countries with a booster shot, maybe the first in the world?
So the data that's been published from Israel came too late for us to start the booster program. We started in June. But I know there was a couple of papers published now showing very good reductions in hospital admissions and deaths from the third booster dose compared to those that only have 2 doses. So Israel has really, the data from Israel has been very helpful for not just for the region, but for the whole world to see how effective these booster doses are, right, and how important they are going forward.
Dr. GREENLIGHTS, Professor Nadav Davidovich, I thank you both. Thank you very much. Best of health.